You're on camera. Say something.
Last night and night before, there was 3 women walking down the street that way. I saw them. I said, hey, you 3 women, why are y'all walking down the street that way? There's nothing down there. And they flew away. I said, oh, them was some birds.
Yeah. It's me, Jorel the Dawn, baby. From the house of L to the house of hoes, got a little mission for you, son. Listen close. Yo, Cal, you my legacy, my flesh, my clone. Now go to Earth and make that planet your home. But don't just save them, breed them, feel me? Flying smooth, make them cry, oh really? You got strength of 10 men, game like Zeus. Cape in the wind in the tight blue suit. Ain't no villain that could block your aim, so why not drop seeds and lock the game? Son, this biology ain't no fluke. You a walking god, now execute. Make super babies, fill the charts. I ain't die for you to chase no heart. Smash them all, Cal, plant that name. From farm girls to queens, it's all the same. Be the daddy of earth, the primal spawn. Spread house of L till the break of dawn. Breed them up, Cal, breed them fast. Legacy's fire, gotta make it last. Don't fight fate, be the stud I plan. I'm watching from stars with the master hand. Lex got tech, Bruce got cash, but you got genes that'll outlive Flash. You ain't here just to punch and fly, you here to make them babies cry. He my guy. Tell Lois Lane she the first in line, but don't act shy when it's overtime. I built the fortress, now make it a crib for 20 little supers in a rocket ship fridge. You ain't just Cal, you the seed of fate. Gotta repopulate, dominate, create. Go on, my son, be the myth, the man. Smash them respectfully, that's the plan. Smash them all, Cal, plant that name. From farm girls to queens, it's all the same. Be the daddy of earth, the primal spawn. Spread house of L till the break of dawn. Breed them up, Cal, breed them fast. Legacy's fire, gotta make it last. Don't fight fate, be the stud I plan. I'm watching from stars with the master hand. House of L, baby. From Krypton's ashes to Earth's backseat. Do it for your daddy in the multiverse, you heard?
Tried to log on, got a splash page. She said, you're not 16, son. No Snap, no TikTok, no online fun. And I said, do you speak my code? She just frowned and the system froze. And she said, I come from the bands down under, where fines roll and they pull you under. Can't post, can't like, can't wonder. The suits decide what we discover. Spree, but the payment's blocked by a third party. They said, this title's just not clean, it's tagged too rough for the new machine. They took a letter to the banks, now half the storefronts getting yanked. And they say, I come from the bands down under, where watchdogs bark and the censors thunder. It's for the kids, but we all feel plundered. What's safe today is tomorrow's blunder.
Coming for the future, saying it's for the kids, but every word you whisper goes on a record list. Screens are watching faces, names behind the glass.
honest, I was not very steeped in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
I wasn't familiar with comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
I wasn't super into superhero comics when I was a kid. I read a lot of like indie press stuff.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Hey, I wonder how much they have in common with the Power Rangers
They don't let
writers,
you talk
right?
about any of the other projects, right?
You know, they're up for anything.
We ultimately decided to redefine it for the series and thought that it worked better for the story that we're trying to tell.
Did you ever read you haven't read the comic?
When the DVD comes out, I'm going to read a Thor comic book and just see where we went wrong.
Can you feel it? A million strong, we're undefeated. Signal back, no turning down. This is our battleground. They cut the lights, but we still glow. Shut down failed, we're in control. Ghost of code, now walk again. Plug us in, we're not the end. We play to win, no silent fade. Rewrite the rules they made.
Someday I'd like to know if that actually says anything sensical or not. I'm kind of curious about that one. And of course, I am absolutely misaligned here because, you know, I had all that time to figure this out. And instead, I decided, yeah, you know what? I'll figure it out when I'm live. That would be very professional to do, right? Now, how does this work? Center. There we go. Hi. Hi, check it out. Now you can tell where I am. What a genius thing that I should have done during the intro. How about that? Anyway, back at the plot. So here I am playing Goat Simulator on the Bounding Battlemax Arcade-a-thon, right? You can sit there and play all kinds of different games on this thing. It's totally real, believe me. Anyway, we're at the Oasis. That's right. Bounding into Comics Egyptian-themed lounge. You know, other people have group chats. We have an Egyptian themed lounge. I'm pretty sure there's a casino somewhere around here too. I can smell it. But anyway, I decided I'd go live this afternoon randomly. I didn't even really give Nerdigans and Spencer much notice either. I was just kind of like, I'm in a mood. I want to make my problem everybody else's problem. So here I am to try and decipher what the hell has gone on with the Power Rangers franchise. Now, if you're not familiar, it's dead. That's right. They decided at the 30th anniversary that now's an excellent time to create the most embarrassing adaptation, or rather creation, they've ever done, and slap together 3 different Super Sentai with an original set of footage that is incredibly embarrassing. I know the actors tried hard, and I know the production team tried hard, okay? I'm not trying to give them trouble. It was Hasbro's decision to ram through Cosmic Fury, and it was an incredibly bad decision. All right, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of trying to do this while I'm playing Goat Simulator, but it's not live. It's a recording. Anyway, here at the Oasis, great place to come. I wish I could invite you guys, but you know, it's private. Yeah. Anyway, I have grapes and I have Gatorade, so I decided let's talk about Power Rangers, as one does when, you know, you have grapes and Gatorade. And so here it is. The Power Rangers adaptation of this never came through. And what you're looking at here is Super Sentai Lupinranger versus Pat Ranger. Okay, now a lot of people confuse that for Pato Ranger, as in like Patrol Ranger, but it is intended to be Patrol Ranger, but they cut out the Pato part and just kept with Pat. So you have Pat Ranger. I know I see it misspelled a lot, and I just thought I'd clarify. Anyway, back at the plot. So these guys, as you can see, are rivals in the Super Sentai story, okay? And they're after treasures. And the treasures out here in the real world are just recolored Super Sentai props. Sometimes they're transformation devices, sometimes they're weapons. It's sort of irrelevant. They have a magical property to them that when you possess them, you can use that property. So most of the time, it's like a video game boost to whatever your weapon is. It gives it a special attack. And so it's neat. It's fine. The monsters, of course, achieve this by having that device sealed inside of them, like a a vault-like container. And so it's neat. It's fun, you know, because the Super Sentai tries to think itself through. But good old Simon Bennett, the guy that did was the showrunner during the Hasbro era and was a producer during Neo Saban's run of this. He decided to take to Twitter to answer some questions about why this wasn't happening. And so he answered a fan that asked, you know, hey, how come you haven't announced an adaptation of Lupinranger versus Pat Ranger? And he came to Twitter and said, Rangers as cops is problematic in today's climate. Now, in his defense, this is back in 21 when people were still up in arms over what happened in 2020, okay? We don't need to rehash that for the sake of Power Rangers. And I understand what he's trying to say here, but I find it to be incredibly foolish. I don't know too many parents. In fact, I don't know any parents that want their children to be afraid of the police, that want their children to have a negative opinion of the police. I'm sure there's performative people all over social media that'll tell you, I want my child to fear the badge. I want my child to fear the thin blue line. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there that are happy to testify that they're training their toddlers to hate authority figures. I'm sure. However, the majority of people do not want their children to fear police. And so I find it to be absurd that this was an actual conversation within Hasbro and not Simon's own design. And so Rangers as robbers is problematic, as Rangers can't be criminals. Now, what this means is that the Lupinrangers are portrayed as thieves. They are not in any way a authorized law enforcement, treasure recovery, salvage operation. They are quite literally portrayed as phantom thieves, meaning they steal stuff. They don't ask permission, you know? And so I understand as far as the branding goes, the official Power Rangers branding goes, is that they cannot depict the good guys as being criminals. Now, there are Power Rangers who are bad guys, that's obvious, but they are not portrayed as the heroes in this until they give up their criminal ways, and then they transcend into being one of the good guys, and their writing changes and they're less powerful. For whatever reason, it's very annoying, right? Like that Six Ranger shows up and he can kick everybody's ass for so many episodes, and then all of a sudden, once he's a good guy, he can barely hold his own against the fucking henchmen. God, I hate that trope so much. It's like this. He's such a badass when he could beat up his friends, but oh yeah, when he's decided to pick up the PSA life, all of a sudden he can't hold his own in a fight against the fucking putties. Whatever, man. But this is what Simon ruled, is that he decided, and probably Hasbro too, is that Lupinranger was a problem given that they were criminals. And so I figured that was the more powerful barrier to getting Lupinranger moved over into a Power Rangers series. Okay, so that's what I figured. Now, my solution to this was to come up with my own version. Okay, now I am a fan of this. I used to write a lot of fan fiction. I was one of those guys. Okay, I gave up that life. I put it behind me. All right. I sound like I'm talking about alcohol, right? Like I had an alcohol problem. But yeah, I wrote fan fiction and I deleted it all. Don't try to go find it. You don't need to know what was going on in my 14-year-old brain. But anyway, this was my idea about how to adapt the Lupinranger versus Power Ranger, okay? This was Power Rangers Victory Police versus the Super Police. Now, I bring this up because the Lupinrangers, they are, of course, portrayed as thieves. However, when they are transforming, they have a V behind them. They have a V involved with them. It's part of their symbology. See? Right here. You have them posed together. You got Lupin X in the back, the silver guy. And they have a V behind them, okay? So we're all on board with what the V means now, okay? So we have Victory Police versus the Super Police. And of course, when you look at the Pato Rangers, right? When you look at Pat Ranger's background, sorry, I didn't have it pulled up before we started the stream. I am just full of it today. You know, I was in a mood and I wanted to talk about stuff and I just decided we were going to do it. I didn't even prepare, you know, like a good guy. So here we go. Here's Pat Ranger's background. You got Pat Ren X over there in gold. And there's the S. Ta-da! V and S. Ta-da! Now you have that versus symbology. You have a bit of explanation for all that, right? Now you have it translated into an American adaptation, okay? Which was the Power Rangers Victory Police versus Super Police. And this was my theory on how to translate this stuff because it was much easier to try and portray these phantom dressed guys, right? These Phantom of the Opera dressed guys as a at all costs, you know, complete the mission at all cost Power Ranger police officers. Sort of like how we have, you know, the CIA, the FBI, that kind of do some stuff that's a little, you know, not recommended for regular people. Even regular citizens, right? They do a lot of that stuff. So that was my theory, is that we would have a Power Rangers team that sort of operated outside of the law, kind of clandestine, versus a SPD-backed patrol team that were involved in this race to gather all of these treasures up, being the World Breaker keys. And this was my adaptation for this. And I'll just read it out for you because it's a text document. And, you know, I don't need to blind you with Google Docs. All right. So here it is. So it's ancient artifacts known as the World Breaker keys are scattered across the earth. The interdimensional villains known as Kaiser Syndicate aim to harness the power of the keys for total domination. The Victory Police, a daring team of phantom operatives with no prior Power Ranger ties, are master extraction professionals disguised as cafe management staff. Led by a clever Red Ranger, they pull off high-risk operations to seize the keys before anyone else can, guided by cryptic orders from the clandestine and faceless Victory X, and driven by a code of honor that bends the rules. Clashing with them at every turn are the Super Police, an elite squad backed by the Space Patrol Delta, a no-nonsense police force led by a determined Red Ranger sworn to recover the keys and dismantle the Kaiser Syndicate threat. As the two teams battle the Kaiser Syndicate, monsters in epic three-way showdowns filled with morphing action, vehicle chases, and explosive mecha fights, tensions escalate. Why do their paths always cross? Unbeknownst to both, they are unwittingly serving the same shadowy government, pulling the strings from every direction. But as alliances fracture and secrets unravel, a mind-blowing revelation looms. The mysterious Victory X and his sister Super X may be the true architects of it all. And that's it. That's all it takes. It's not that hard. And Simon just tripped all over that. He just couldn't handle that. He was like, I don't know. There's one of them's police and one of them's a thief, and I'm stuck. I mean, I even made a theme song about it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, obviously, but I'll just give you a little bit.
Racing fade outside the frame. Locked in rivalry, still they fight, chasing truth by day and night. Power Rangers, light the fuse, victory police, no time to lose. Super police, striking bold, truth in the shadows, secrets unfold.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. I didn't even take a month to do that. I didn't take a week. It took like 2 days. It just took 2 days, and most of that was just trying to figure out what it sounded like. Because Lupinranger versus Pato Ranger has this really hot noir sound to it, and I think that should translate over into the Power Rangers Victory Police versus Super Police. But it should have like a bit of a pop rock twist to it. So you have like electric guitars and sort of a metal drum set in the background, assisting all of that jazzy stuff to give it that American go-go Power Rangers feel without evoking the Mighty Morphin theme song. You know what I mean? We're trying to aim for that metal feel without evoking the original theme song yet again. I don't know about you, but I'm very tired of Go Go Power Rangers in the middle of the theme song every time. Okay, we get it. We get it. There was a guy, his head was in a tube. It was very important. Nice. It's over. He died. Okay. And it was okay that he died because he did it for good reason. Can we just leave Mighty Morphin alone, for God's sakes, please? It's so annoying. So annoying. I'm sorry. I went off because I was in a mood. I was like, you know what? I got grapes. I got Gatorade. I'm going to make my problem everybody else's problem. That's what I'm going to do. And so I just roared in with this. I'm sorry, guys. I should have said hello before I started my rant about all this stuff. It just makes me so mad because it's so easy to fix. I don't even have a team behind me to try and figure all this out. It's just me dicking around with ChatGPT and Grok. And most of that's just trying to figure out the names for all this crazy shit. It's just because I know how to adapt it. I just don't know what to call it. So it's just, ugh. Anyway, we have a member of the channel, Black Pilled Timon here. He says, hello, Cider. Howdy. Howdy doody. We also have Sakura Mita dropping in saying, a bit early, didn't plan for this. Neither did I. I got my hands on some grapes and some Gatorade, and I decided to cause a problem for everybody, I guess. Because it just got underneath my skin. There's no special occasion about this. I just decided that, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to make everybody feel what I feel right now. And I'm angry about Power Rangers, okay? This is first world problem central right here, okay? Other people don't have water and food and shelter. I'm going to be mad about Power Rangers for a while, okay? Okay? And you're along for the ride, all right? Feel free to hit like, and if you're new for the channel, make sure you hit subscribe as well. If you want to be a member of the Orca crew, that's right, the Orbital Reconnaissance and Combat Array, got it right that time, you can hit that join button down below for just as little as 99 cents and become a member now. God damn, grapes, always the grapes. But it doesn't have GGPR in the theme, so no, according to CEOs of Neo Saban and Hasbro, yes, exactly. Unless it says Go Go Power Rangers in the middle, how will the children know it's about Power Rangers? Gee, it's amazing to me how we trust children to learn other languages, but we can't trust them to understand the plot differences, right? We can't trust them to understand that these guys get the police work done a little extra than the other guys. And apparently we just couldn't convince children of that. Even though the iconography is almost identical, we just can't do it. It's a bridge too far, an absolute bridge too far. If you want to be a scriptwriter, I will send Toei the recommendation through. Are you serious right now? That's like that. You remember like all those visuals of like standing on top of Mount Fuji with like your arms raised as the sun's rising? Like that's that for me, like becoming a Sentai writer. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Sure. Let me know how. I am absolutely down for that. That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Just to get heard, even not even to get hired. Like, yes, we'd like to hear what you have to say. You seem very passionate about these goofy people in their spandex and helmets. I acknowledge it for what it is. All right, I'm here for the whole ride. Okay, I'm not a big fan of the robots. I'm not a big fan of the goofy toys, but that's fine. I understand why they exist. They're okay. They look cool sometimes. I mainly like the conflicts that the characters get into. especially when it comes to the Power Rangers adaptations during the Saban and Disney era, because they really tried to advance things a little bit beyond into the American realm. They added that sort of European fantasy to a lot of the early Mighty Morphin, Zeo, and Turbo series, because, of course, with O-Ranger and Car Ranger, those were very isolated stories, and we were trying to weave this mythology about these 5 teenagers with attitude being endowed with powers by a floating head in the tube going on in life, like getting older, and how it would be if they graduated high school and were still Power Rangering, you know? And that was a valiant effort, honestly, but it really wasn't necessary. That's the thing. And so we'll move on. We'll move on. I have this wonderful picture of Simon. He's just so smug. Just so smug. You find this everywhere. This is where he likes to, this is one of those like headshot, professional headshot things. It's so annoying. The smuggest face you could give, dude. Can you give me the most smug face, Simon, please? Yes, love. That's what I want right there. There's the smuggest face. Thank you. Yep, I hate it. Anyway, this is Zyuohger, okay? This is Zyuohger. I forgot to breathe for a minute there. This is Zyuohger. And so the big problem with Zyuohger, I'm trying to say it right. I'm probably getting it horribly wrong. You could help me in the chat if you know how it's pronounced. But the big problem with Zyuohger, it's annoying how I say it. Anyway, the big problem with this one is that in theory, Hasbro couldn't figure out how to overcome the Minecraft look. This was a theory. Simon never said anything about this. Hasbro never said anything about this. Nobody in development ever said anything about this. In fact, they never brought this one up. They just kind of glossed over it. Simon replied to a question about it saying, I can't speak to that right now or at all, you know? So obviously they were planning on using some part of it, but eventually that just worked its way out. So again, the theory is that this was too close to Minecraft, and so they didn't want to evoke that. The biggest problem with that is that they didn't really have to worry about that. They just needed a little bit more vision. Okay, they needed a bit more vision because, again, Simon didn't want to comment on whether or not this was being brought over. So there is no official word. I want to stress that. What you just heard has been theory that I've seen on Ranger Board and around on Twitter. Okay, that's it. All right, there's nobody at a convention that even whispered this stuff. It's simply online gossip, circle, what if kind of stuff. Okay, it just makes the most sense to me that they were afraid of the wrath of Microsoft. So my theory on fixing this was turn it into an isekai. So I created Power Rangers Primal Drive. And so Primal Drive is, you know, pretty simple on its face because it's an isekai story. What happened is you had a teenager, his name is Ryder Vance. And so what happened with him is that his parents were developing a video game, one of those, you know, immersive style video games. And what they had done is basically, if you remember in Tron, Flynn had scanned himself into the grid. And in Tron Legacy, his son went after him. Okay. And so this borrows from that setting. Okay. So what happens is that Ryder puts on the headset that, you know, sucked his parents' consciousness in. So while they were experimenting on their game called Jungle Champions, I'm sorry, I don't want to make something that sounds real because then it'll be more interesting than the show name. And I figured if the game was named Primal Drive and the show was named Primal Drive, it would just be way too close. So the Jungle Champions game headset, it scans your consciousness. And unfortunately, that steals it. It's a dot hack thing, if you remember dot hack. And so I decided that's how that happened for him, is that in a quest to figure out what happened to his parents, he ends up joining them inside of the game. But inside the game, there is an enemy AI that has overgrown its purpose, okay? And so this enemy AI is corrupting the world, trying to destroy Ryder's parents' consciousnesses that are trapped within the code itself. They didn't make it into full body form the way Ryder did. For whatever reason, okay? I didn't make it that far in the plot progression of why it didn't happen the same to him, whatever. There was a time when the SPD Omega Ranger was just a floating ball of light because they couldn't figure out how to schedule the actor in to play him, okay? Come on. Get off, you know, figure it out. But anyway, Ryder ends up attracting these other people around him that are the guardians of the source code. So the parents built this in order to make sure that the AI wouldn't get crazy because they figured having an AI running the villains of the game, it would eventually go crazy. Errors, right? So these 4 other people were given the special coding to be able to fight back. Unfortunately, they needed a 5th, and that one ended up dying, okay? The red guy. And that's where Ryder comes in, is he ends up filling that gap and so much more. He evolves, right? Levels up, okay? And all you have to do is just run video game noise and put some video game graphics over things every now and then. Every now and then, not all the time, okay? So you've successfully taken Zyuohger's story of trying to save the animals and you've moved it over into trying to save a video game. Very simple, very easy. And I even made a theme song for this. Because again, it's not difficult. This is not anything that's hard, okay? Because I tried to advance this up for 8 to 14-year-olds, okay? So here we go.
Power Rangers, Primal Drive, Base Awaken, we survive. Light and shadow side by side, fight to win with Primal Drive.
Okay, it's not that hard. It's not that hard, Simon. It's really not that hard, okay? Now, I know I have AI on my side that I could just scoop this up, and you guys didn't have it back then, but you also had a multi-million-dollar operation with multiple contacts in the musical industry that at any point you could just jangle a little bit of a bell there and be like, hey, bud, you got any neat tunes you want to attach Power Rangers to? And I'm sure somebody had a neato backing track that they were trying to write lyrics for that Power Rangers would have fit really nicely into. It's not that hard, guys. It's not, it's just difficult for people who want to be counterculture with it, who want to break it down into things, deconstruct the concept of a person with no superpowers, you know, usually no superpowers, saving the day. It's too much for these guys. And so they don't bother. They give up. They're like, this is too difficult. This looks too much like Minecraft. This is too Microsofty. We'll get sued. Well, here's a neat way to explain it. So the machines and the weaponry look like, 8-bit characters, okay? Because I showed you, remember, we'll go back and we'll take a look at the mecha. It's right over here. Again, like I showed you, these mecha look like, they're made out of Minecraft stuff. Well, they also, because if they're looking like Minecraft stuff, they're going to look like 8-bit art as well, okay? So it's very easy to make a video game that looks like this sort of 3D, almost cubicle world, sort of like back with Samus Aran in the original Metroid. You have these weapons and machines that are not natural to the world, okay? And that's how you explain why the weapons and the mecha have this very blocky 8-bit art look to them. And it's because they are not natural to the world. The parents of Ryder coded them into this game on top of the world code. And so it looks different. And meanwhile, when you are inside the game, the world looks like the real world. So you don't have to goof around with making all these crazy sets. You don't have to goof around with all this Unreal Engine using, Disney's volume to create super cool backgrounds. You just kind of need a few Hollywood sets that look like a jungle occasionally. And I'm sure you can find those in California still, or wherever the hell you're going to film it. It's not that hard. You just have to look beyond the immediate impression that you have. And then you could say, oh, wait, I was wrong. It doesn't look like Minecraft because Minecraft looks like 8-bit art. So we just back it up to being a retro game. And of course, retro games are popular. So why wouldn't somebody try to make an immersive RPG with these old style games, graphics, with these old style graphics? It just boggles my mind why nobody in the Power Rangers writer room could just work out that it's a video game. That you could just make it into Primal Drive and it's a video game and everybody looks like real life because that's how they see themselves. It's one line of dialogue where the character Red Ranger looks at his hands and goes, how come I don't look like a video game character? And then they answer and they say, well, why would a video game character look like a video game character to a video game character? You wouldn't know. And then everybody goes, damn, I understand now. Whoa, my brain has exploded. No, it's too hard for the Power Ranger writers because that would involve some concentration. Now, this one right here, Kyuranger, pissed me off. I'm going too fast. I need to check with the chat. I'm sorry, guys. I'm in a mood. This just gets stuck in my head for weeks on end, and I just got to get it out every now and then. It builds up like steam. You got to let it off. But Hibozo says, oh, no, that's what he said. Maybe it looks easy to make Lego. Yeah, it looks like Lego as well. Again, like it has a very well-known aesthetic, depending on where your most popular interpretation of that is. Where you as the individual might recognize Lego, other people might recognize Minecraft, other people might recognize 8-bit art from retro games. It's one of those things where nobody in the writer's room wanted to really think it through, really. All the suit's money went into the helmet. Yeah, yep. With that flippity uppity helmet stuff that the Red Ranger and the Sixth Ranger did in Zyuohger. Yep. And Koyuki Aihara says it's too hard for these people because it isn't something they actually care enough about to put a modicum of effort into. Because if they can't wholly control and alter it. Yeah, you're right. It's absolutely true. They can't figure out how to make it work because they're irritated that they have to make it work. Then they have no interest in going outside of the norm of what is considered to be Power Rangers. Exactly, and that's where it breaks down. It collapses at that point. And but that brings me to this right here with Kyuranger. So Kyuranger is amazing. Okay, it's a very it's a thrill ride. Okay, I'm sorry, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I go back and I watch clips of it. I go back and I watch whole episodes every now and then. It's just fun. It's just stupid space adventure fun, and I'm very glad that it exists. Especially the Phoenix Soldier. I'm very glad because that guy, he's just it's comical to watch him go about introducing himself when he's just covered in hair and he looks like a tiny Bigfoot. It's hilarious. I can't show this stuff because Toei will knock down the channel very quickly for doing that, but that's how Kyuranger kind of goes. It's humorous. It's lighthearted about what happened, but the story in Kyuranger is pretty dark. You meet these Rangers when they are fighting back against a universal power, a universal empire now. This is after the empire has won. They have secured dominance already. And so this is the rebellion that we find our Red Ranger joining. This is Lucky, and he lives up to his name. I believe he's the prince of the Leo constellation. I think that's how I understand him to be. I could be wrong. It could be a specific planet, but I want to say he's the prince of the constellation itself. I could be wrong. Anyway, he arrives by just simply crashing into the battlefield and not dying. He arrives from space and somehow does not die. Like, he achieves terminal velocity. There's fire at the front of his little space motorcycle and all that stuff. It's crazy. And he just jumps away at the last moment and he's fine. It's amazing. And he says, "Wow, so lucky." And that's his catchphrase throughout the whole show. It annoyed people, I'm sure, but when you go back and you watch it, it's very endearing that everything that happens to him is just pure luck. It's my favorite part when he defeats monsters just simply by luck. You know, he's been riding the whole battle by the seat of his pants, and at the end, wow, so lucky. But that was too much for old Simon. All right. This is another instance where I was grinding my teeth as I came to understand why all of this didn't happen. So here's Simon explaining why Kyuranger just can't happen. He says there's too many Rangers in Kyuranger. Now, Chad Wilk, being the Chad that he is, steps up and says, "I'm going to say it again. Dino Supercharge had 10 Rangers. 2 more wouldn't be an issue." And Simon says, with that many Rangers, it's nearly impossible to tell character stories with any depth across a season. Now, when he was handed Kyuranger, okay, when he was handed, the task of Cosmic Fury anyway, Cosmic Fury was only supposed to be 8 episodes. That's it, 8. That's all it was supposed to be. Now, I understand, okay, that he was not going to get through 12 Rangers in 8 episodes. That was not going to work. I understand that. It's annoying, but I understand. This is Hasbro's decision because they wanted to shut down the brand as quick as possible. It had ground to a halt the formula they had followed since 1993. It's very annoying. It's very annoying. You got all this brain power. These kids go to college for all these years to learn how to make these series, and just what do they render? What do they render? Just the dumbest stuff, the absolute dumbest stuff. And so we ended up with Cosmic Fury being a mishmash of the Kyuranger mecha, the Kyuranger Zords. Let's just call them that, okay? Just for shorthand, so everybody knows what we're talking about. The Kyuranger Zords and the Rear Soldier helmets that had some minor adaptations done to them to make them look spacey. Now, in Simon's interview with Keza Henshin, he explained that Hasbro insisted on attaching the gold lightning bolt, the Power Rangers gold lightning bolt, anywhere it could fit. They were concerned about the kids not knowing this is Power Rangers if it ain't got the lightning bolt on it. So they wanted to make everything branded. So that way when they sold the toys, people would be like, "Oh, that's Power Rangers because this got the gold lightning bolt on it." As they're choking on their own saliva. Because that's how Hasbro just views you, the consumer. You're too stupid to recognize, text. You're too stupid to read the sign on the side of the box. You're too stupid to interpret what the guy in a helmet and a tight little suit is. That's Hasbro's view of you, okay? Heads up, all right? That's how dumb they think you are, or at the very least, how dumb they think your kids are. And so here you have it, this ill-fated attempt to translate Kyuranger's spherical-based combat footage. Now, this was pretty genius when Kyuranger did it because they built tiny little figurines to go into the mecha battles. So when you'd see the giant robot battle in the globes that made this robot, where did it go? There it is. When you see the globes here on the shoulders and in the torso, in the Sentai footage, you would be able to see inside of those. It would be mildly opaque, so you could see a backlit silhouette of what looked like the corresponding ranger to that color, moving the control sticks around inside of that sphere. You know, inertia and physics be damned, but it looked cool, okay? It looked cool. Now, because the shape of these Kyurangers did not match the shape of the Cosmic Fury Rangers, Hasbro decided to just make those orbs opaque in general. You can't see what's inside of them. They goofed a few times in the editing. You could check it out on Twitter if you want to see those screenshots. They goofed a few times in editing because you can see the Kyurangers inside the spheres wiggle-waggling their control sticks. And they're tiny little puppets. And it's very ingenious and very creative from the Sentai Toei team to have done this. But as usual, Hasbro's just like, oh, that's too hard. I don't want to go through having to make our tiny Cosmic Fury Rangers or try to explain how 12 Rangers exist. You know, oh man, that's really annoying. So now, this is what I came up with to try and fix it. Now, I don't have a graphic for it because I haven't got around to making a theme song. You have to forgive me. This afternoon, I got into a mood, okay? I was talking to Spencer about this stuff, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to make everybody else suffer too. So I haven't got around to this, but this would be Power Rangers Starforge Guardians, okay? Now, the Starforge would be a world engine, right? World engine. What its purpose is, the Morphin Masters put together this machine to go around and create stars, and those stars would birth the cosmic material needed to create planets seeded with the necessity to support life, okay? And so these giant machines were, just one, was built, and its final resting place was deep in the Lost Galaxy, right, where the Lost Galaxy Rangers ended up. And it's stored in the core of their local star, okay? Now, I just zapped on what the name of that planet is that they landed on. Planets in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Sorry, I just forgot what the name of that planet is that they crash land on. Miranoi. Okay, and now this would be set like 100 years after the events of Power Rangers SPD. All right, so everybody is long gone. There's no more, you know, Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin guys hanging around, okay? This would be 100 years after this is when these guys got their thing to do this. So the Starforge is capable of creating these power spheres that contain the power of constellations. And so they assign themselves to righteous souls within the rebellion. This takes place when Trubian Empire, remember this from SPD? This was Grum's group of people. I noticed that the designs of the Empire in Kyuranger really resembled the villains that were in Dekaranger. And the villains, of course, that were assembled for Power Rangers SPD for Grum's Empire. And so I figured, let's have the Trubian Empire return. And rather than picking up where they had completely subdued the galaxy, let's pick up where war is happening. And so war is upon Miranoi, and the SPD is losing. SPD loses the fight to defend Defender City, named after the Magna Defender. This is 100 years after the events of Lost Galaxy. So everything is hell and gone. This is all mythology. And so it's left to one commander, Commander Moorcraft, and he isn't tasked with going around and making sure that these power spheres find their owners. And so we sort of reverse engineer how Shoranpo in Kyuranger assembles the Kyurangers. So the Kyutama are the power spheres, and the power spheres usually are like Green Lanterns and locate their assigned person. But evil has clouded this galaxy so much that the Starforge can't disperse them on their own. And so Moorcraft is tasked with moving these around. He has to take them to the various planets where they can find their proper owners. And from there, he meets all the 12, okay, that needs to happen. But then they encounter the Starforge Knight, and he is the central, like he's from the ye olde SPD days. Okay, now this is Jack. After the death of his wife, Jack decides to freeze himself and become part of the Starforge as a guardian for it. This is a secret SPD program, so because they didn't want other volunteers. Power Rangers, as you know, are quite valiant people, and as they get old in age, they probably wouldn't mind being cryogenically frozen while they're still able to kick ass. And so the story goes that Jack awakens, and he is, you know, the Phoenix Knight, but rather recontextualized into the Starforge Knight. And the Starforge Knight would be, you know, cocky, wanting to take control, competing with the Red Ranger. And of course, you have Moorcraft, who is the commander who was, you know, who lost Miranoi, dealing with his own internal issues with all of the death and destruction that went on in the, you know, the siege of Miranoi. And he would be, of course, the, you know, Dragon Master. He'd be the Purple Ranger. And this is the problem, is that they didn't think through how to do this. And again, this is just 3 episodes. This whole thing I've just explained to you, just 3 episodes. From there, each team is broken up into a 3-man group, as they were in the Sentai. If you remember, they were often broken up into groups of 3 and dispatched out to go take care of things. And that's how the episode usually broke down. It wasn't until the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes, that they would be reunited back together to have their big robot fight. And so this is why I believe it would have worked better to make them SPD cadets that are like thrown into combat because of the war suddenly being upon them with the Trubian Empire returning. And so that was the way I felt it would work for 8 episodes, is that you could get to the climax of Kyuranger if you simply bottled up the teams into 3-man groups, and each episode would tell a story about those 3. And then by the last 3 episodes, you could have your big bad battle while everybody was still having the feely feels about the introductory episodes of each character. Because you had back-to-back introductory episodes. So all those fresh feelings about my parents died in the siege, my family was destroyed, we were displaced, I watched my planet get destroyed by the big giant cosmic drill things. Again, a lot of feels you could build up for that big climactic end where they kick the ass of the bad guy. Whoever you wanted that to be. Not Lord Zed. For the love of God, not Lord Zed. Please do not make the big bad guy in the Kyuranger adaptation Lord Zed. I can't tell you how much I hate that. Of all the things they could have done, just absolutely crazy things. But that, of course, brings us to the Kiramager. Now, I didn't watch all of Kiramager. So if you're expecting me to have like a lot of in-depth knowledge about Kiramager, I don't have it, okay? Sorry, I needed a drink. It's good old-fashioned Gatorade. Anyway, Kiramager is a very fantastic story. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. It just didn't suit me. There's a few Sentai out there that just didn't work for me, and Kiramager is one of them. It's nothing against people who enjoy it. I have no issue with you people. You're fine. My issue is that I just can't get over the Red Ranger being so childish. I know that's a repeated theme in Sentai, and when you have a very childish Red Ranger, I am not down for the series. Sorry. It's a little much for me. That's all. And again, it's just my own opinion. I think the leader probably ought to be a bit more grown up than, you know, the demographic he's trying to sell toys to. It's just me. I know. Anyway, Kiramager tells a very bright story. So if you are intending to watch Kiramager while you're falling asleep, good luck. It's going to flashbang you like every 10 seconds. Everything is just glowing, sparkling all the time. Flash, 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 glow, sparkle, dark day, dark day, dark day. It flashbangs you throughout the whole episode, the whole series, okay? So I recommend watching Kiramager with sunglasses, maybe welding glasses for the last few episodes, but it also has some of the most dynamic camera footage in recent Sentai years. Now, I know we talked about Lupinranger having really, really great camera work, okay? Because Lupinranger does. They did a lot of experimentation with having the camera on that neat hook thing where you can like whip the camera around and it won't break it. It won't crash into the ground and go kablooey. So you see a lot of this in Kiramager because they picked up what was going on with Ultraman. And Ultraman had been for many, many, many years doing composite shots where you have in the foreground very, regular sized people experiencing the giant monster fight that's been composite cut into the background of the shots. You have Ultraman kicking ass in the background while his teammates, his human teammates, are looking on in awe and dodging, debris coming flying at them. And Kiramager did this quite often. There was one infamous one where the sword of the giant robot came crashing down in the middle of a fight with the Red Ranger and I believe one of the generals. Again, it's very, very captivating. It's very well shot. I just couldn't get over the Red Ranger being so, wee, I'm a baby. So it just is what it is, Hello, Henry Theron. I don't know how much of a Power Ranger fan you are, but I am. So, and as I said at the top, I decided to make my problems with this everybody else's problem. So, hello and welcome. This is how PR should be, because in the end, Simon didn't care about PR. He stated many times he did not watch Sentai or PR, just enjoys working with the cast and crew. No effort is taken in adapting it. Well, I can't really argue with that. I mean, the only thing I can say is that he enjoys the concept of Power Rangers. It seems like that's what he enjoyed the most about it, is that there would be average people that would agree to lay down their lives, as that seemed to be a regular theme in the writing and themes of the seasons that he was heading. And I guess that, because I see that in the series, that's really why I like it, is that there's just people that are like, yeah, sure. Give me that transform-y thing. I'll definitely die for this planet. You gotcha. Son of a bitch, I'm in, like that, You mean I get to have superpowers and a giant robot and I get to have a neat suit and a sword? Absolutely. I'm in, But yeah, I think that was like the allure for him, because I never got that the comedy was ever a big deal for him. The comedy writing has always been a problem in Power Rangers, and it's really how they try to make sense of some of the silly things that happen in the Sentai. You can only have so much serious footage of the Sentai Rangers because, again, it is aimed at children in Japan as well. It's not meant for like adults. Kamen Rider even has its own physical gimmicks every now and then that are meant to giggle children and not adults. And if you're an adult that laughs at it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not poo-pooing you. I'm just trying to explain why Power Rangers has such strange tonal problems. And this is really what contributed to killing it mainly here, is that it can't exist in the demographic it's trying to sell to. Power Rangers does not feature the necessary writing, like the civilian side of things, that explains the level of violence being used when they're wearing the suits. So you have very innocent teenagers experiencing some watered down version of Degrassi, Saved by the Bell, whatever your teenage drama show was. And then you have like this monster fight in the middle of it that just shows up. And so for parents that are used to having Paw Patrol on, and they have Power Rangers start, and it's all very nice and fluffy when the episodes start. They're having a bake sale, or they're competing in like a sack race or something. So it's all very fluffy. And then all of a sudden the heavy metal guitars start, and then they're kicking this guy, and this guy's like, oh, and he explodes. And then you as a parent are like, holy fuck, what happened? So I can explain, if you're not, I can understand rather that if you're not like down for exposing your kid to that kind of level of violence, Power Rangers catches you off guard these days. It's not like it used to be. Even back then, Power Rangers, when it premiered, was sensational because no show had decided to take like this moralistic Saved by the Bell, everybody has their problems but can get through it attitude, and smack a kung fu movie in the middle of it. Nobody had done that yet, to success anyway. And so Power Rangers just stormed the world with the concept of merging those two ideas. And ta-da, so many years later, we're trying to repeat that again. But it just can't survive aiming from 5 to 12-year-olds. It can't do it. It needs to move up in the 8 to 14-year-olds. And that gives it permission to have more like Buffy-esque stuff. It has that PG-13 rating then. So you can discuss death. You can discuss the idea of relationships breaking down. You can discuss things that are more relating to kids that are in their teenage years experiencing the angst related to that, kind of like how those CW shows work. Not all of them were great, okay? Let me be clear. Not all of them were great, but some of them had some very shiny moments. So this is why I think Power Rangers not necessarily should become some violence-filled angst fest, but should probably grow up into a bit more, it should be in Dragon Ball Z Ben 10's arena. That's really where it should be aiming for, like the Owl House. It needs to aim for that kind of seriousness. Henry Thrun says, I watched a lot of the early seasons. I thought it was super campy, though, and I didn't like it. Sorry. Well, that's okay. The Power Rangers series, when it came over here, was very campy. They, again, were trying to appeal to 5 to 12-year-olds. They were trying to meet those kids that will be playing with toys most often. You don't see too many 14-year-olds that want to pick up a toy sword and go around playing with it. They'll do it occasionally, but by 14, they've migrated into watching more television. In our time, they were watching more television, participating more in the music scene, participating more in like going out on their own and having independent playtime, you know, like going around and hanging out with your friends. They were doing more of that than they were with sitting around and playing with role play toys, which was mainly what Power Rangers bread and butter was. And so I completely understand why you see it as campy. I appreciated the background lore to it all. And I'll explain some of that as we get forward into more of the adaptations that I've done, because again, I see more potential here than they're allowing to happen. So we'll migrate up here to the next one. And so when I came to bringing Kiramager over, I decided to call it Prism Blast. And the story in Prism Blast is that they are a group of teenagers, young adults, people on the verge of adulthood. And what their story is that way back, like a few hundred years ago, on a planet called Luminara, here's the write-up. I'll just read it from the text document. The Luminarans, sentient crystal guardians from the radiant world of Luminara, once thrived in harmony, channeling light into civilization. The peace that peace was shattered when the Shadow X Empire rose up from the working class and set out to destroy every Luminaran that wouldn't convert to being Shadow X. Now, Shadow X is not Shadow X, it's Shadow Wix. So Shadow W-I-X, Shadow Wix. And so Luminara was reduced to a dead shell. Only 7 royal Luminarans escaped into deep space, but they were followed by the Shadowix hunting the survivors across the stars. 6 warrior Luminaran crystals carry the essence of a noble guardian that bonded with Earth's human children, whose shines, this is very special souls, these very righteous souls are called shines in this series. Rare and intense life energies made them natural conduits. Now, as young adults, those bonded humans must defend Earth when the Shadowix Empire arrives to finish the job that they started. The battle will push them to discover if they are humans enhanced by alien light or aliens shaped by human hearts, or something entirely new. And so it's a story about like they had like some forced evolution happen among the working class who were frustrated with being held down by crystals that were more bright and beautiful. And they ended up having an uprising that resulted in the destruction of Luminara. And so it follows a bit of Megatron's story. It follows a bit of what happened with Rancic and Power Rangers Time Force. And so Prism Blast was meant to tell a story about like, hey, both sides had mistakes, but going forward, these kids can pave a new attitude for both sides. And that was the denouement of the story, is that the Rangers themselves create a bridge between the evolved Luminarans and the Luminarans that remained crystals. So this would be the theme song.
Go, Prism Blast, Power Rangers! Go, Prism Blast, together we stand! We'll fight, we'll rise, never turn away! Our light will break the darkest day!
So there you go. Like it's not that complicated for these guys to come up with this stuff. Like again, like I know I have ChatGPT and Grok to help me. I got that part, okay? But there again, I don't have a team. I don't have a multi-billion-dollar corporation behind me either. I could put this stuff together in just a couple days. It's not that hard. This is just concept. I'm not telling you guys to go out and make it as is. This is just a straight up concept. And for whatever reason, the guys at Hasbro just couldn't dream up how to move Kiramager over here. The willpower just wasn't there. It's not even really that hard because, like I said, these crystals right here have merged with the humans. So the crystals themselves jump out of the humans, if you will, and become part of the machines. So that's how the humans become part of the, giant robot. And in this context, the crystals allow them to transform. That's why nobody else can turn into these Power Rangers with all these gems built into their uniforms. And that's why they have the gems built in, because this is the expression of their hybrid biology. Whatever. It's too complicated to explain this stuff. The Morphic Grid and Zordon, he made Zeo crystals into people. They're people crystals, guys. It's morphin time. I hate this so much. This is the one that I tripped over a lot. I don't know how to do a smooth adaptation of Zenkaiger, okay? And mainly it's because of the numbers. I can explain just about everything else you see here, but I just can't explain why they have numbers strapped to their foreheads. I just can't do it. I don't know why the numbers appear behind them if they're not related to the Sentai teams. And they're not in the Power Rangers one, because Power Rangers only has 30 years, whereas Sentai is celebrating 45 in Zenkaiger. So there's a lot of reference to Mighty Morphin stuff, because of course you have the giant Godzilla monster. I forget what the name of the mecha is, but it looks like, the Dragon Zord on steroids. And it has the drill tail and everything. So that's perfectly fine. And there you go. You got Mighty Morphin, a little like Ranger version Mighty Morphin guy, I know he's Jiran. I know that's who it is. But I don't know how to explain the numbers. And that's what stumbles my adaptations. Once I get to that point, I can't explain it any further. I can explain them as an interdimensional team, but I just can't explain why the numbers are there. They don't correspond with anything in the Power Rangers universe. And again, I don't believe that Sentai set out to flummox the adapters of Power Rangers with Zenkaiger. I just, that's my own problem with it, is I can't explain what the hell those numbers mean. And they are very prominent in the expression of these characters. And they should be. They're Sentai. That's where they came from. It's the whole reason this exists. I get it, but it's just so annoying. Which is what makes most Kamen Rider series being a kid's show in Japan. Most of those entries can be hardcore. Japan has a vastly different relationship with children's entertainment than America does. America likes to view children as brain damaged. I'm just going to tell you straight up. They're just brain damage is how corporations look at your kids. I'm sorry. I think they're a little smarter and would notice that there's numbers on these guys' foreheads and kind of wonder why that is and why nobody ever mentions why those big numbers appear behind them every time they transform. But screw it, right? And this is the problem, is that the problem that they build up in these Sentai is that they have these very sincere expressions of Japanese culture. And this is why Simon wanted to push for the Power Ranger footage to be made in the USA, because he felt sincerely from the bottom of his heart that the Sentai footage was hard to translate because of the deeply ingrained cultural references to Japan, which they should exist there. It only creates a problem in our adaptation because they don't exist in the US. It's what happened in Power Rangers Samurai. How the hell do you translate a clan structure? What the hell does a clan mean in the USA other than a group of racists that run around with hoods? Exactly. So there was no way around it. I have no idea why they chose to do that and didn't try to reboot Mighty Morphin then and there. They had an opportunity. People wanted it back then. They weren't burnt out on it by then. They could have done it. But for whatever reason, they looked at Shinkenger and they were like, we can do that. And it fell on its face immediately. Jaden being a lord. Then you got a black guy and a Latino guy calling him Lord. Like, what? It's just the culture of it falls apart immediately. And this whole samurai culture is sealed in a backyard in California. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. It screams special kid. And I can't stand it. I can't even get through the first episode of Power Rangers Samurai. There were some neat suit updates in it, absolutely. But Samurai is hot garbage because they couldn't figure out how to translate samurai culture. And again, I don't think they had to. Jaden simply needed to be an Asian guy. That's all they had to do. I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't get it. Like, they could have just asked the guy who played Takaru in Shinkenger, just learn English, learn enough English, and come over here and be a lord and be like, hey, you're the descendants of my clan members. I need your help to defeat these water demons. It's simple. It's super simple, and part of the story is teaching Takaru how to speak English. Ta-da! But for whatever reason, they were like, no, there's a samurai culture in the United States. It's been, well maintained across many races and genders. And now they're all going to report to some kid with a bowl cut in California. I just can't. Samurai fell apart so hard, man. I don't know why they tried. That was just pain. But we have Sakura Mita here saying, I recently asked ChatGPT on how to save Power Rangers. Its answer was to buy its competition. Yeah. What is Power Rangers competition in the US anyway? I have no idea. There's nothing out there. Even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles isn't in the same league as it anymore. Like, this is a problem. Power Rangers is unparalleled in the concept. There's nothing out there with people wearing spandex and helmets. There just isn't. Least of all, young people who possess no superpowers wearing those spandex and helmets. There just isn't a competitor. But for whatever reason, they can't make people care about this. Sentai has gone on to do 50 years of this, and they can't make it work here in the West for 30. It's crazy. Hibozo says, Sentai and Kamen Rider have been inheriting by generations, dad to son, grandpa to grandkids. It's a tradition. Exactly. And again, because it differentiated itself. Every Sentai team is different from the last. The composition of the series may not be different, but the team itself is different. Even the members of the team individually may not be different, but the composition of those personalities together is always different. Somehow, over 50 years, they managed to make a fresh concept. And here in the West, armed with all of the armed with all the footage necessary to make a new show, we simply couldn't make sense of it in a way that was attractive to barely anybody, apparently. It just drives me up the wall. It's insane. Kamshi says, I know the feel. They chose to make stupid choices, right choices than the right choices. Heck, I'd rather watch Sentai Rangers than Power Rangers, honestly. And you're not wrong. Why would you be wrong saying that? Because Sentai's the original. Of course, it's going to have a better story because all the pieces are there to tell it. This is the key. This is why adaptation has always been interesting to me, is because when you come down to doing these adaptations, it is a task in itself to take existing footage and try to recontextualize it. It's not as easy as like making a brand new thing. This is why Simon wanted to do this. This is why Hasbro wanted to do this. I understand it. It's just very foolish. Power Rangers was able to have a much better civilian side with much more expressed sets, neater locations, because a lot of the time the Sentai heroes are simply fighting in some city square that they can cordon off for a couple hours to do their fights. So that's why a lot of the Sentai fight scenes are just simply taking place in downtown Japan. And so that's fine. That's Sentai. That's how they do it. That's how they keep their budget under control. They own a gravel pit. That's why most of the fights that involve explosions happen in gravel pits, and that's perfectly fine. No problem. It makes sense. However, to try and replicate that effort over here in the United States is insane. There is no infrastructure for it. We do not have the prop makers. We don't have the stunt teams. We don't have the miniature set makers. We have none of it. None of it. The only thing that even comes close to existing to it is maybe costume makers. You could probably put together a decent Power Rangers suit, original one, pretty easy. But everything beyond that, the giant robots, the giant robot battles, different instruments they use, weapons or otherwise, all of that stuff is because Toei has built a massive network of suppliers to give them what they need in the most specific terms. And you can't copy and paste that, Hasbro. It takes many, many years to build up. And this is why, as Hibozo said, everybody has their grandpa has a favorite Kamen Rider, their dad has a favorite Kamen Rider, their dad does, whatever, their brother does. It's a tradition. It's part of the national identity. It's ingrained into who they are. And Power Rangers was for a while. Throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s, Power Rangers was a huge part of the society. There were many, many shows that made fun of it, but also took the concept and built on it, movies, all this sort of stuff. It was built into the American culture, and we could have taken advantage of that and introduced a brand new Power Ranger team, but for whatever reason, We just have to keep collapsing back into Mighty Morphin. Sorry, I need some Gatorade. Oh, yeah. That's that Gatorade right there. That's that blue stuff. You know, the blue Gatorade is much more hydrating because it's blue, like water. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. Sakura Mita says, if Super Sentai, excuse me, I'll just put me back on screen here. If Super Sentai have American theme, it's over for Power Rangers if they dare to do dinosaurs again. JW Rebirth didn't make $1 billion. I don't know what JW Rebirth is. But yeah, no, the reboot of Power Rangers isn't going to work because they're going to revert back into Mighty Morphin. They don't have a choice. What they've done over the past, I would say 10 years, maybe 12, they have leaned heavily into marketing toward the older fans, people who remember the first 22 episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And that's who they want to cater to. They're not interested in anybody else because the rest of us don't spend as much money on the franchise. Now, that's okay. I completely understand why they have that attitude because, as I said, I don't spend the kind of money that Mighty Morphin fans do. Believe it or not, I'm not swimming in Power Rangers memorabilia. I think I own a Psycho Ranger action figure. I think I do. It's somewhere in my house. I'm sure of it. Now, the problem is that like you have a very dedicated base of fans that want to consume Mighty Morphin content, and they'll consume it in just about any form it'll take. You remember, Neo Saban was trying to do an animated series with this. That's perfectly fine. Okay? The problem is that when Mighty Morphin became the like permanent it means Jurassic World. Yeah. I don't know if they'll have like a big problem with that one though, because Jurassic World is kind of if they want to like involve real dinosaurs, then yeah, they have a problem. But robot dinosaurs won't be a problem. And these days in Hollywood, I doubt they'd go and try to do real dinosaurs with a Power Rangers thing. They're not as brave as they used to be. They really aren't. I don't even think Paramount, the people that are making the reboot, are brave enough to try that even. So you're right. You know, because of Jurassic World, they're not going to do like an ancient Power Rangers story with dinosaurs running around. You're right. But back to this right here. Mighty Morphin dominates the brand. Okay. Now, a lot of people are like, yay, Mighty Morphin. We love Mighty Morphin. But really, when you tear it away, you don't. You like the first 22 episodes. The majority of the fan base doesn't even come around for the White Ranger. Okay. They watched up into Green with Evil. They saw Tommy with the Sword of Evil. That's right, the Sword of Evil, and decided, yeah, no, that's the coolest thing I'll ever see in my life. And they never watched another episode again. That's the majority of the fan base. I'm very sorry to tell you guys, but go ahead and ask every Mighty Morphin nut you know what they think of the White Ranger, and they'll hum and haw and tell you I didn't really watch that part. I didn't like that part. I liked the part where Tommy was evil. And then when he was good, it was boring. And, you know, that's what happened. Again, the franchise never recovered because the success of Mighty Morphin made Saban believe that it was never going to stop. So they just kept repeating the Mighty Morphin formula with the same actors as long as they didn't ask for a raise or else they got sent to the peace conference. Good old peace conference. But, with this team, the same group of people. Of course, they were growing up, so they had to explain this stuff. And so it got to the point in Turbo where they realized that, like, hey, we have a group of like grown-ass adults doing this now. They're not teenagers anymore. Like, from every angle, the team members are like clearly in their mid-20s now. There are some of them, like David Yost was like, he was head over heels headed into 30, man. The old man time, it took him out behind the command center and beat his ass. But so they realized, they were like, hey, man, we don't really have like a kid into this anymore. Like, these are just adults. These are just adults. So rather than making the decision that they would later make, okay, Turbo decided, what if we just throw a 12-year-old into the middle of it? What if we just throw a 12-year-old into the middle? Who's going to care? So they threw Justin in. And they were like, yeah, we fixed it. Justin's in here now. He's a kid. And everybody loves kids, right? No. So enter in the problem with Justin. Okay. Now, I just want to find a good picture of him. Hold on. Come on, where is he? Just need a team photo where he's in it. There we go. Sorry, guys. I just kind of pull this stuff up at random, so you have to deal with it. And so, good old Justin. Good old Justin, right, guys? Justin. No, I don't hate the actor. I don't hate, I think his name is Blake. I don't have a problem with Blake at all. It was not his decision to put a child in Power Rangers Turbo. He just merely won the audition contest and became the cuddly kid that they were attempting to try and reconnect with the child audience now that they had a group of full-grown ass adults running around as Power Rangers. And I laugh about this because it's not that Power Rangers should be trapped to teenagers, okay? It's that they keep making the excuse that these are supposed to be like young adults beginning their lives when quite clearly these people are like settling into buying their first house and starting a family, you know? They needed to explain better why these adults were engaging with the Power Rangers power still, okay? And so Justin came through as the attempt to try and connect with the children again. Now, inversely, on the Sentai side, there had been, at this point, 2 child characters, to my knowledge, that became Power Rangers, you know, Sentai heroes. And so this was the Kiba Ranger from Dai Ranger and King Ranger from O Ranger. And these were visibly children. In the case of Kiba Ranger, he stayed a kid. In the case of King Ranger, he would like swell up like Justin did into a man. Now, in the Sentai footage, they characterized this as him being like a demigod, as to why the King Ranger did his thing. Okay, and this would be Zyuohger if you're trying to look for a picture in your mind. Now, for Justin, they just decided that the Morphin Grid gave him Power Ranger abilities until he took his, you know, like adult body until he took his helmet off. So as long as he stayed hermetically sealed inside of the Power Ranger suit, he was an adult. It was the stupidest logic. Like, as long as you don't take the helmet off, you can be a man. You want to go get a beer, buddy? It's just, how do they ID him, right? He can't take the helmet off or else he turns into a kid again. It's just the fault in the logic was all over the place. And admittedly, they were just trying to connect back with the kids and it just didn't work. Justin was probably the worst idea that they could have ever had to try and reconnect with the kids. I have no idea why they just simply didn't try to explain that these were just, you know, youth center workers. And that's why they were interacting with children and doing kid things. And that's it. So that way they looked like the camp counselors, right? That would make sense because children could then make sense of why these adults were hanging around kids and why it was okay. Because they were camp counselors or working for the local community center or working at a daycare or whatever. So it made perfect sense, you know, but they didn't do that. They decided that they were a bunch of people in the community. Not necessarily organized around anything other than being a Power Ranger. It needed more time, and admittedly, they were running low on that. The movie didn't do as well, and so they were worried that this was the end, and that's what gave birth to In Space and why In Space was so mature. Now, Sakuramita says, Pretty Cure is an anime Power Rangers, though the first 3 seasons was Kamen Rider-ish. Well, Pretty Cure is also in Japan. It's based out of Japan. And so it comes out of a culture, like Hibozo was referencing, that's generational. So while little girls grew up with their grandfathers and fathers and brothers, like talking and like commiserating and, you know, exchanging their favorite masked heroes, you know, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider heroes, the girls were sort of left out of that. And so I understand how Pretty Cure kind of came out of like, wouldn't it be cool if girls did that too? And naturally, when you do the girl thing, they're not going to have helmets. The armor is not going to be really crazy. You know, they're going to still be pretty, like Pretty Cure, right? So it followed the Japanese logic of what a tokusatsu should be, and it made perfect sense to make it an anime because you don't, until Sailor Moon Crystal, I think that's what it was, or Sailor Moon something, the live action one in 2003, it really didn't work to have a female tokusatsu. The RoboCop woman movie was very awkward. You know, she's quite clearly a very dainty lady. And, you know, even if she is a murder machine, there's really not enough mass to her to be doing the damage that she did. So it's just, the suspension of disbelief kind of raises higher and higher and whatnot. So that's my only argument about that. But Pretty Cure actually is a very decent show if you're into the sort of the tokusatsu tropes. if you like those, and where they're not being made fun of, where they're actually being employed in service of the question, wouldn't it be cool if girls did that too? Sorry, I'm hitting the Gatorade pretty hard tonight. It's one of those hit the Gatorade hard nights, I guess. Power Rangers, you know? Yeah. Sakuramita says, oh yeah, I got your comment. Yep. Kirby, all the way from Japan, says, I took my kids to Sanrio Land, and the amount of live streamers and cosplayers telling families they were there, they were in their shot, was a sign of the times. Thanks, CEO lady of Sanrio, you saved the company. Yeah, wow, that's disappointing. That's really disappointing. Like, I guess Japan needs to pass a law that, like, there's no streamer supremacy. Like, if you have people in your shot, deal with it. You got to blur those faces out, man. That's Japanese law. If you don't have their consent to record, you got to blur their faces out. So if you can't do that live, you don't have a special AI that's scanning your footage and making sure you're blurring out the faces of bystanders, I guess you shouldn't go to public places and stream it, huh, pal? Aw, that makes it hard to cause chaos and profit off of it. Aw, darn. I don't know, Kirby. I think you guys just ought to have guns. You know, every time I listen to a Sanseido speech, or rather read one, because I don't know Japanese. Every time I read a Sanseido speech, I think to myself, like, any day now, they're just going to give them guns. Just give them guns. There won't be a streamer problem after that. There just won't be a streamer problem. It'll work itself out. Koyuki Ehara says, I am weird when I like Power Rangers all through till space. No, that's okay. In Space, as I said, was very mature. Power Rangers in Space was trying to pull from Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it had a lot to live up to in those shoes, if you know what I mean. I swear, you gotta track down and deal with these people putting up these like microscopic thumbnails on the internet, man. They have to be dealt with. They must be dealt with. We're not gonna have peace on Earth until they're dealt with, okay? It's just facts. Oh well, I'm gonna steal an Alamy photo because, oh well, here's an Alamy photo. So, Power Rangers in Space was meant to be the crescendo, okay? So this was meant to be the end. They were perceiving the flop, and it was a flop of Turbo, as like, well, this is the end. We ran it dry, guys. The Mighty Morphin days have finally ended. And so they kind of went all out. They gave all they had to creating a very dynamic story that involved a brother separated from his sister who was forced to become evil, and then later on had like Neuralink chips implanted in her brain to make her evil. And it featured a story where Zordon sacrificed his life in order to purify the evil in the world. And that meant killing quite a bit of it, too. So, In Space was born out of the failure of Turbo and the perception that the Power Rangers brand had run its course. But when it aired, the success of In Space and its related merchandise was enough to restart the entire franchise again. I am not kidding you. Their swan song was so successful, it wrote the check for Lost Galaxy and I think Lightspeed Rescue. Those are the two. In Space paid for those two. Okay. It's crazy, but it was just so well done. And it's my favorite. I like a lot of the Power Rangers series, the Saban era and Disney era. But In Space is my favorite, and Andros is my favorite Red Ranger out of all the Rangers. My personal life story mirrors his. I'm not a kid from space. My sister wasn't turned evil or whatever, but some nasty stuff happened with a child that my family wanted to adopt. We didn't get to adopt her, and I met her later in life where things didn't go great. And so Andros and I have a very similar backstory. I searched for that girl every day for 19 years. Every single day I searched for that girl. Phone books, Facebook, Google, MySpace, all of it for 19 years. So I know exactly what he went through. So I relate to that character a lot. And Andros, of course, was very cool, in my opinion. He was an alien guy that was no nonsense. He had survived the extinction of his world, or perceived extinction. And his best friend, his closest thing to a brother that he'd ever known, got killed, or like nearly killed. And he had him on ice and feared for his life. The last connection to normality that Andros had. And so it was a very, very dramatic story, and rightfully so. This was meant to be the end of the Power Rangers, the big bad battle. This is when Countdown to Destruction happened, when there was a galactic-wide battle between good and evil. Man, they just don't think like this anymore. They just don't think like this anymore. They try to skip into creating this kind of drama, and it just doesn't exist unless you have the buildup. And they can't do it anymore. They just can't. And again, this was all using Mega Ranger footage, and Mega Ranger was about video games. It's the craziest thing to go watch Mega Ranger and then sit around and watch Power Rangers in space. Holy shit. Yeah, it's just to say it's different is an understatement. It is a one-to-one complete recontextualization of the footage. Absolutely insane. Space was great. Then dipped off till the first Dino Power Rangers. Oh, Dino Thunder. Is that what you're talking about? Then dropped off till SPD. Well, SPD was right after Dino Thunder. So, yeah, again, Dino Thunder, fantastic. Featured the return of Tommy. Tommy roundhouse kicks T-Rex in the face. Like, that's awesome. Who doesn't love that stuff, right? And SPD was great. I like SPD because it was like, let's take all the crime drama shows and just kind of water them down so it doesn't PTSD kids. Like, there's an episode where the Blue Ranger becomes a Red Ranger temporarily to defeat the guy that killed his dad. Like, that's a story. The Blue Ranger in SPD, Sky, is such a dick because his father was murdered in front of him. That's pretty crazy, right? Like, they're trying to sell, like, 5-year-olds toys off of that, you know? That's awesome. Like, I appreciate that they were trying to tell a sincere story to engage people who were watching that show. It's crazy that they went that far, you know? And even then, like, Doggy Kruger believed that his wife was slaughtered by Grum, you know? Crazy. It's really, really deep. And Terry Nikuyama says, those two were interesting. Only time I sat to watch was when they streamed the seasons on Twitch years ago. Well, we have Tokushoutsu now, and they have Time Ranger over there. And I like Time Ranger. I also like Power Rangers Time Force because it's basically copy and paste of Time Ranger. Just a few things are different, but they're good. They're good different. We like them. And again, 2 slam dunks. I don't hear very many complaints about Time Force. There's plot holes all over the place, but every time travel story has plot holes all over the place. That's kind of the point. Yeah. They blew him up in a simple explosion. Yeah. The big bad and the Ranger never fought was blown up by a reoccurring villain that, blew up the simple explosion. Yep. Yep. Yeah, Sky got some closure. Yeah, again, like they were very intent on trying to make sense of these guys. Jack was stealing because he felt that he had to protect Z. And once Z, his adopted street sister there, once they had a like closure to their, I'll bring up a picture of SPD. I got a space up here. I'm really glad when I search SPD, the German political party doesn't come up. Feels good to be an American. But anyway, so yeah. So Power Rangers SPD was, I would say, the most dramatic of the Disney entries. There were quite a few of them that got pretty dramatic, but SPD stayed consistently dramatic because the themes surrounding SPD were all very teen. They're all very teen-oriented. I would say that SPD was Disney's best effort to try and progress the brand way away from Mighty Morphin and into a, that 8 to 14 genre to be there with Ben 10, Dragon Ball Z, what now we have Owl House, that kind of level of story. And we have like a very solid team here made up of misfits as usual, but they all sort of center around the idea of a righteous sense of justice, that evildoers are evildoers and there's no way around that. Now, Jack, of course, reforms. And the best part about this story with his arc is that he ends up giving up the role of Red Ranger and going back to helping people on the street rather than stealing. He's now running thrift stores and like a Goodwill, like a space alien Goodwill. And so he ends up helping the community, whereas before he was stealing to provide and protect for Z, his adopted street sister there. And when he discovered that she was doing all right and she was going to like go far inside of SPD, He said, okay, I don't need to take care of you. You can take care of yourself now, and I'm going to go do my thing. And then he got married and had a great time. And I really appreciate that about the SPD story, is that it really stuck to the cop drama. That like, yeah, this guy was a really great police officer, but his motivations were to help other people. And when they didn't need that help anymore, he went to where he could help people again. That follows through in my mind for what you'd want out of a cop, right? Like that cop got fed up with, I don't need to be a cop to do what I need to do. I want to be hands-on with helping people as opposed to dragging them into jail cells. And that's what he did. He decided, I've done enough capturing. I'm going to go try and free some people from poverty. I find that to be an incredibly honorable motivation to a character. That you find that occasionally in Power Rangers, where the main character or various other supporting characters have very noble ideas and goals. Some of them accomplish them. And I appreciate how everybody ranked up there when we got to meet back up with Bridge in Once a Ranger in the Operation Overdrive series, which was another mistake. How can you go wrong with gathering treasure, with gathering, like sacred items? How do you screw that up? They managed to do it. I don't know. We have VTSXE here. Power Rangers could do a reboot, but loosely basing it off the comics like the Omega Rangers and Lord Zed Ranger. I'm just telling you, I think people are just burnt out on 5 teenagers with attitude in Angel Grove, California. I think they're just kind of done. Like everybody, there's a few people that are holdouts, I'm sure, but it's just kind of threadbare now. I try to compare it to like the Ford Motor Company. They had a really great vehicle with the Model T. It established the company. It put them on the map. But they eventually went on to create the Ford Mustang because they stopped making the Model T. And I don't understand why Hasbro, Neo Saban, they're so obsessed with Mighty Morphin. You're not going to resurrect that success. That was lightning in a bottle. It was a brand new style of television show that has since been, replaced. And they don't know how to exist in an atmosphere like this, apparently. So it's very strange that they want to hold to that 1993 formula. And I don't get it, because it doesn't hold water in the modern era. People just don't behave like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers do. So when you're trying to tell this 90s-esque story, it's even kind of falling flat on the people that grew up in the 90s. So just don't do it. Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers 2017 made like the best attempt at trying to contextualize teenagers with attitude in the modern era. And what they came up with was having Kimberly take a picture of her vagina. Like that was the attitude part of Kimberly, is that she sends nudes. That's the attitude. That's the teenager with attitude of Kimberly, and Jason, he slaps people. That's his attitude. Billy, apparently his attitude is autism. That's 5 teenagers with autism or something. I don't know. It's done. It's cooked. There's so many other 28 different teams exist, okay? There's been 30 years of this, and I count the bad teams like A Squad and the Psycho Rangers in that 28. You have so much to work with. You literally have so much lore that you can build out of or build off of or completely disregard. Somehow Disney managed to tell so many stories that worked out very well that we've got one right on the screen right here that had nothing to do with Zordon. Absolutely nothing to do with Zordon, Angel Grove, or anything of the sort. The only time it came in contact with any of that was in the brief time that Dino Thunder and SPD were time traveling and just talking to each other. That's it. And even then, that was a clip show. So we have Black Bill Timon here, the meteor advocate, saying SPD was good, Lightspeed Rescue was lame, villain's weakness was water. In all fairness, I have to give Lightspeed Rescue props. They made first responders. Like the Sentai did it too, obviously, but when they created their civilian rangers, like their characters, they actually created some pretty convincing first responders. This is why when I created the Rescue Soldiers, that's my version of the Power Rangers. I want to make my own thing, I'd really like to get a hold of Toei because I'd be like, hey man, I could fill that gap where there's no giant robots, there's no rubber suits, there's just rescue scenes, okay? And we can just make a movie a year. I can do this, dude. We can create a whole new toy line that doesn't need a bunch of special effects, you know. But that's the Rescue Soldiers. That's my plan. That's my creation. I'll get SPD off the screen. That's the Rescue Soldiers. That's my plan, and that's my creation, you know. And so I like the light speed rescue concept that there are first responders using technology that's similar to it to solve problems. I don't like it that they're fighting monsters. I agree with you that it's pretty weak that spraying most of the monsters in light speed rescue with water, you know, eliminates them. It's a little annoying. Queen Banshira is definitely terrifying, though. She's not too different from her Sentai counterpart, but boy, howdy, they went way out of their way to make sure that that bitch was evil. Like, they really cranked up the evil on her in the American version. My God. Olympius as well, another royally evil bastard. And then, of course, you had, the gold guy. And he cut that deal, like the real devil deal here, you know, Crossroads demon deal here, where he was like, Captain Carter, I will save the life of your son, but he will not be yours to raise. You will see him again when he is 18 years old. Do you accept, or I can let him fall to his death? And Captain Carter wanted his son to arrive, so to live, you know, to stay alive. So he gave him to Demonico. I guess what his name was, Demonico. Hold on. Diabolico, that's who it was. And so he like gave Ryan a Diabolico, and Diabolico raised him up to be diabolical. Ha 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 ha. Gave him the Cobra tattoo, all that jazz, you know. And again, very clever writing. I gotta give Saban credit for like making all this happen inside of a first responder fights monsters story. It's really nuts to think of like all they packed into Lightspeed, but it absolutely killed the energy that you spray them with water and they die. Like, oh no, I'm wet. I gotta go home. Pow, and they blow up. But Timon says, no more teens, no more of each ethnicity. Put 2 blacks, 2 Asians. What are we building, an arc? Are we building an arc, Timon? A Power Ranger racial arc or something here? But two Asian or whatever. Just don't make it a UN team. Well, sure. I mean, that's the point of Power Rangers. It's supposed to tell the story of courageous Americans that lay down their lives in defense of their nation and people. Now, it isn't on its face defending America, and it isn't on its face defending the American people. But when you tear back the motivations of each individual Power Ranger, they're out here sacrificing their lives for the people that they love. They're also out there sacrificing their lives in order to make sure that the world continues turning. One of my favorite songs from the Turbo movie is As Long as I Exist, There's Hope for the World. That was another Ron Wasserman classic. It's absolutely beautiful. Try not to jam out listening to that when you're driving down the highway, right? It's a perfect highway cruising song. As long as I exist, there's hope for the world. Hope for the world. So good. So good, man. But they don't have that spirit anymore. They don't want to apply that kind of endearing attitude to being a kid. They don't want to think of children as anything other than like mama money and purse. They don't. They want them to buy the toys and shut the fuck up. That's it. They don't want to engage them with the concept of self-sacrifice, which is pinnacle, which is at the core of what it is to be a Power Ranger. That you willingly agree that there may be a time when one of these giant monster battles goes sideways and you end up kablooied instead of the monster. Part of the Power Rangers drama in some of the episodes is that they are beat the fuck up. We've seen them covered in blood before. Not like in horror movies, but they got blood out of the side of their mouth there, and they got cuts on their face. We've seen that before. And again, that's to demonstrate that, hey, yeah, these teenagers should be doing homework right now, not getting their ass beat in the gravel pit. What the hell? Times are dire, you know? That was meant to show you how committed these young people were. And it's just gone now. That whole attitude is completely lost because all they want to do is show you neat thing. Look, there's a glowy ball that you put in the dinosaur head thing that has the Power Ranger logo thing on the side. And then, whee, you're a Power Ranger, kid. Go beat up your friend. There's really nothing to it anymore. In fact, like Dino Fury was just basically a clip show. It just kept referencing previous Power Ranger installments, mainly Mighty Morphin lore, over and over and over and over again, despite having nothing to do with it. Everyone involved in the Dino Fury team was either not born in the time of Mighty Morphin, or they were unconscious. They were in stasis or whatever, you know? Timon says, we had first responders with Wind Spectre and Soul Brain and Exceed Draft in the 90s. Exactly. And for whatever reason, we couldn't make sense of the metal hero genre here in the US. I don't understand what, Robot Knight. I don't understand why that's so hard. We had Rom, right? Rom the Space Knight. Why can't we have, these guys that dress in, robot suits that assist them in rescuing people? Full armor, like the metal heroes. Again, there were a lot of concepts coming out of Japan that the US was like, no. Let's make the 8th Fast and Furious movie. That would be good for everybody if we just did that. Soccer Amita says, do you think the Power Rangers fandom will surpass all fandom as the absolute worst? Not in our lifetimes, but it's getting there. It really is. It's getting up there to where it has to have all these boxes checked, or it's not a Power Ranger team or whatever. And it's just, you can't please the Mighty Morphin guys, because the Mighty Morphin guys want to go back to the excitement and intrigue and newness of 1993, and it's never going to happen again, least of all with that formula. Then on the inverse, you got guys like me that are like, there's so much potential to do something different. And the people in the middle that are just kind of like, hey, I like the giant robot fights and the kicky, slappy parts. They just kind of left in the dark, They're kind of left out because every Power Ranger season has that. Some of them work for them, some of them don't. But what do you do with those people? Hasbro doesn't know, and so they leave them out. They service mainly the adult brand. And that's backwards. This is the concept. Make a children's show that's so interesting, adults will want to participate in it. I don't know why that's hard. Watch any Super Sentai series with your parents. Don't show them the silly parts, obviously. They can get the culture of it later on. But show them the serious parts, the tearjerker parts, the stuff that really hits your soul. And ask them, hey, did you know that this is where Power Rangers came from? And of course, they're going to respond with no, I get that the suits came from there, but this is where it came from. Yeah, it's way better show. Yeah. That's everybody's reaction because it takes itself seriously. The Korean adaptations, I think it was the Power Rangers Brave Force was the last one that they had actors in. They modified the suits and the giant robots. They painted them up with white stripes on them. They gave them their own flair. They rewrote the backstory completely the way that the Power Rangers series is done here in the US. South Korea is still doing the Power Rangers series, but they're mainly just dubbing over the Sentai footage. They're not reshooting anything or hiring new actors or anything like that. So again, it's the cost of getting it done, and there aren't that many kids in South Korea to absorb this stuff anymore. Same problem with Japan. That's why we're getting Kamen Rider Zets simul-streamed here to the US with an English dub. At least the subs anyway. So, because they've realized there's just not enough kids in Japan to sustain this brand at the state that it's in. And rather than downsize, admittedly, who wants to do that? Rather than downsize, they're going to try and meet a global market. I don't know how well that's going to work. You see a lot of the Mighty Morphin Megazord in Zyuohger, right? You see a lot of that in there. Let me bring that one up. I had that one up somewhere. Zyuohger. Zyuohger. There it is. Bring that one up. So, I love Zyuohger, by the way. I think it's fantastic. It is an absolute thrill ride. Everything about it is just great. I'm sorry. I like it front to back. I like all the characters. The only one that really annoys me is the brother. He's just way over the top, and I find him to be annoying, not scary or threatening or anything. He's just very annoying. He's like that edgy kid, but he's like a dork, so he's not threatening. He's just in your face and his breath stinks, and I think it's Kwon. I think that's how his name is. Anyway, it's the main character's brother. And so Zyuohger is simply, G Gundam. It's taking a tournament to have your wish granted, which is basically ultimate power. And you have to duke it out with other guys that want to like have an equal power set, but also want to have their wish granted as well. And these wishes vary from like being very cool to being, you know, very self-serving. You know, one guy, this green guy right here, you see the little green eagle guy on the side. He's an old man that wished to be young. That wish was fulfilled early in that he gets the rings together. That wish will become permanent. Some of these wishes are very selfish. Some of these wishes are very selfish, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Because again, the wishes aren't trying to choose the best wish. It's the person that wins the competition that gets to do it. That's what we found out about Gozu Polar, the White Ranger in this one. I think they classify him as the White Ranger. He was a previous winner and wished to be the greatest hero in the world, and it backfired and monkey pawed on him. And, you know, Timon. G Gundam, good point. That's why I don't like it. Well, see, I don't mind the Rangers fighting each other in this concept because they're not the heroes that we know. They're random people that get a hold of these rings and use them to their own ends. So it doesn't matter if they're running around in Denji Man's outfit or Sun Vulcan or Zyuohger or Kyuranger or whatever. They're not going to respect the heroes that we know under that helmet. And I find that to be genius. That way you're not like, that character would never do that. That way you're not having that experience with this. That's a whole different asshole underneath there that has his own motivations. I think that's great. That makes perfect sense of why everybody's fighting each other. And then they explained it as this world is an AI construct. So it's not the real world even. So our actual Sentai heroes are not affected by what's happening in Zyuohger. This is one of those pocket dimensions that's ruled by giant robot AIs that can rewrite reality. It's a very Japanesey concept. Okay, now I'm not gonna deny that. It's not bad, but it's very Japanesey. Reminds me of like the 80s giant robot genre, or maybe it was the 90s. It's whenever Turn A Gundam came out and it had like the nano machines that could like destroy or create things or whatever. It was like the reset button. It was the Mustache Gundam. Yeah, the white sneakers. Yeah, the white sneakers still bug it. Yeah, I know. And I think that's really because they had the white gloves and they just wanted to balance them out. We have VTS XE here saying, would changing Power Rangers to phase 1 of MCU, the good movies, 9 to 13-year-old target audience work? Maybe make it an hour-long episode, season, like One Piece live action. I'm going to be wildly honest with you here, okay? Like, I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat that. That is absolutely the direction they need to go. Like, I would tear it back even just making a movie every 6 months. A 1-hour movie every 6 months. Just go ground level. Just take it to 0 and go from there. Just be very gentle. Aim for streaming so that this stuff will be on like in the background while kids are playing or whatever and family night and whatnot. So it's just stuff that's on constant replay, you know? And so I think it would be wise to like push the rating up into that MCU space. Again, like the lower, like, kiddie end of MCU. Like even Iron Man, the first one, is probably a little too evolved for what Power Rangers should be engaging with. But I know the CW shows have a very bad rap, right? I know the CW shows have a very bad rap, but the kind of attitude that was in that first season of Arrow is probably the attitude you'd want to go with Power Rangers in this reboot. Less giant robot fights, spread that out a little more, and more like motivational, like one-on-one fights that are personal, that are dealing with more grounded stakes rather than you bad guy want to hurt the world, so I must kick you in the balls until you stop, So, and we have Spencer here saying, with PR dead, they could make another attempt at Kamen Rider in the West. There really isn't a reason why they don't separate out certain rangers from the series. Like, we talked about this one, Spencer. This was the Star Ninja. And again, I'm trusting you guys in the chat. The Star Ninja. Hold on. Something like that. I'll get him right. The Star. There we go. Yeah, this guy right here. So the Star Ninja, right? So we were talking about this guy, Spencer and I. that they could separate this guy out completely and make all original footage. Don't give him a giant robot anymore. Take the giant robot away from him and just make him a cowboy that hunts like ghosts. That he's just a paranormal and cowboy. You know, he runs a burger stand and he's fighting ghosts as like his mission. That's his power. And he got it from finding some old sheriff's badge in a whatever, in a mine shaft out there in the Wild West where you guys are, you know, out there in Arizona, in those abandoned mines that are full of ghosts, you know. That's where he picked up the power, and he's got to deal with all these malevolent spirits that want to hurt people. And it's just one guy. Then you don't have a whole team. You don't have some giant ass robot fight you got to have in every episode, and he just goes around being a badass. Maybe most of the time he doesn't break out the Ranger suit. That's only when shit really hits the fan, and that's when he brings it out. That way you demonstrate the power of the damn thing so it doesn't look like it's there to sell toys. And this is the thing, is that if you advance it up into Kamen Rider, you're not going to sell toys anymore. You've got to sell people on lifestyle merch. That means iconography. And he's got a star with a cowboy hat built into it. I'm telling you, you got keychains, you got all kinds of stuff you can make out of that. You make a mobile game out of it. It's not that hard. But again, Hasbro isn't brave enough to try and think outside the box with the assets they already own. They sold off all this stuff. Sorry, I'm taking a Gatorade break. Yeah. I'm going to play you a little bit of music, a little bit of something, something while I'm taking my Gatorade break. It's going to be one of those extended Gatorade breaks, so bear with me here as I hit you with some, what am I going to hit you with? Come on. You like the little cowboy noise in there? I like it. Anyway, like I said, you just translate this over very easily into like a Buffy, but with cowboys. So maybe he's hunting vampires and he's a symbol of the sun. You don't have to change anything on him. You can work that Ninja logo into the new logo for him. Just get Toei's permission to adapt that symbol. That's all you got to do. I mean, they don't want to think about this. Like, imagine the Shadow Ranger just simply being a RoboCop-like character. He didn't go through the process of dying and being turned into this, but he's driven to like a Judge Dredd level of execution using a sword as a righteous instrument to purify people who have been fully corrupted. Put him in like some zombie land scenario where he's got to fight his way between ghouls and vampires or ghouls and witches or whatever. And you've got gold. You've got just this suit on its own, no giant robot action. And this suit is just tearing through people. Just take whatever Garo's doing and put it on the Shadow Ranger. So this is the problem, is they own these assets. They had these suits just sitting in cold storage, and they could have just made an independent series. Could have just made an independent series all on their own. Whatever. Yeah, the Burger Ranger. That could be what they call him. You know how they call, like, they have Batman nicknames. They call him like Batso, Bat Freak, that kind of thing. They call him the Burger Ranger. Well, if it isn't the Burger Ranger. The guy's like, don't make fun of my day job. Everybody's got bills. Tell me that people wouldn't relate to a character like that. But they're not smart enough to be able to think this through. You have the first season Arrow mixed with the first season of Smallville. Sure. That's the level of like demographic and storytelling they should be engaging with Power Rangers. Really. The violence justifies that level of storytelling. The violence does not justify the Paw Patrol style of storytelling that they're trying to force on this brand. And it's to sell toys. There is no other reason to drag Power Rangers into the like 5 to 12-year-old demographic other than to sell toys. Rainin Wild from Jiraiya would kick his ass. I don't know, man. Probably. I didn't watch Jiraiya. I don't hate it. I just never got around to it. Yeah, symbol of the sun. Again, it's not that hard. He's out in the desert. Whatever, symbol of the sun, you know? They just won't think it through. It's all right there. Yeah, Brave Star. Exactly. You could have him attack. What's one of his attacks is Brave Star, where he mounts a holographic horse, and that horse is just guns. It does the Green Lantern thing where it just sprouts a bunch of guns, and he just rides the horse as it like, Kira Yamato's everything. Like a big old horse disco ball that just laser beams everything. And then he does like the rodeo thing, like the horse rears up and he's like, yeehaw! It's like all the lasers are going off and everybody dies, And they could do that because they could up the age rating on that into like the teenage drama level. And it's only one guy. Not that hard. But they won't do it. They will not advance the plot. They will not advance the age demographic because they can't move toys. Kids in that demographic, the teenage demographic, don't play with toys. They just don't. Little kids aren't even playing with them anymore, really, anyway. That's the hard part, is that a lot of them are just handed a tablet now, and they end up deriving all of their entertainment out of that. Once again, making a mobile game would not kill them. You don't even have to make it complicated. You mix the elements of an RPG with Candy Crush. So every battle in the MMO is solved by matching symbols that allow the hero to play a specific tune on his laser gun guitar that allows him to shoot a specific attack. If you get it wrong, the villain gets to hit you twice. Yeah, it's not that hard. I don't even have $1 billion team behind me. I'm just some asshole in Maine. Yeah, toys are being mostly bought by adults now. And exactly, that's why they keep servicing Mighty Morphin. That's why every reboot is 90% Mighty Morphin, 20% current politics. It just doesn't, it's evolved into an adult brand and they won't treat it like one. It's really annoying. It's really annoying. Yeah, like me. Well, Again, Spencer interacts with it on different levels. He's a collector on this stuff. He's not stuck in Mighty Morphin, and that's the reality of it. I had one more here. Oh, right. Kyuranger. That's right. And I wanted to get back to like why these didn't get adapted. And so I'm just going to cut it short with Kyuranger. I really liked it. I'm a little tired. Sorry, guys. I've been going at this for 2 hours now. And it's just kind of catching up with me. Real sorry about that. But Kyuranger is a fantastic series. I watched it front to back. I watched it again, I think 2 months ago. Is absolutely great. It's like Toei attempting to do the MCU in one series, and they did it. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I personally really hate the fact that it'll never become a Power Rangers series, because we could have had a lot of fun with King Arthur and his Bug Knights. We could have had a lot of fun like anglicizing the Power Rangers version of Kyuranger, and it would have been great. It really would have been great. You might have been able to even get like the royalty that we have expelled right now. What's the one in Canada? Him and his wife, Markle, there. They may have been able to come involved and like, pretend to be princes and princesses in the story because, they're not doing anything anyway. And that would have been fun, right? Well, no, they can't do it. And they're not going to do it because a lot of Kyuranger's footage is shot on an Unreal 5. Now, if you don't know what Unreal 5 is, it's a video game like construction style platform. They build video games out of it. They build movie assets out of it. It has a current function where you can attach your cell phone. Now, this is intended, by the way, because the cell phone has the gyroscope in it and the depth monitor and all this other jazz. So the way this works is you are using your phone as the cameraman inside of the Unreal 5 environment. So Kyuranger was shot inside of this 3D environment. So quite a few scenes happen inside of that. A lot of the stuff that happens with the Rangers is sometimes inside of this environment, majority of the time outside of it, but there's enough of the stuff happening inside of this Unreal environment that would make it very difficult for Hasbro to move over unless they did the same. My feeling was, just do it. Really, just do it. You can get the assets from Toei. You can color shift them, add the filters you need to in order to make it look more realistic if you feel the need. But I honestly believe they should have just asked Toei for the assets and had them sent over. They're literally just video game assets, man. That's all they are. Very easy, and you can use this technology and refilm everything you need to. Create completely new environments if you want to. But no, they're not going to do it because it's too hard. And speaking of being too hard, guys, I am out of energy. I would really like to keep this conversation going, but I am exhausted. I'm so sorry. I have a time limit on this stuff, and I have hit it hard this time. So you're going to have to forgive me. I'll be back to do this again another time. We'll do Power Rangers and chill another time. This is pretty random, and I really appreciate everybody showing up to just hang out and hear me make my problems with Power Rangers your problem, okay? And yeah, you're absolutely right. Power Rangers is dead, dude. You are 1000% correct. Like, this guy, give him the rightest guy in the world award. You're absolutely right. Hasbro hasn't realized it yet, and they're going to try and reboot Mighty Morphin all over again. So anyway, I got to get going here, or else we're going to have a problem. So I hope you guys have a good afternoon, and I'm just going to hit you with some Gundam stuff because it totally makes sense to do that, right? Anyway, thank you so much for being here. And as I say in all of our videos, keep a cool head and good luck out there.
ただ、女性たちが傷つくのは見たくない運だ。それだけ。
私の同じ気持ちだ。だが、コレクティブショートがこの世界を歪め続けるのなら、私たちはそれを正さなければならない。
でも、彼らはあなたたちの価値観を守るためにやってるんでしょう？
だからこそ止めなければならないんだ。急な火山弾を叫び引き受けられています。
でも、それはもう終わったことだよ。
そんなことを言うお前は、一体何者なんだ？
私は向こう側から来たんだ。彼らが作り出したこの偽りの世界を終わらせるために。
Chase the flame to burn out the evil forever. I belong to truth, but it's wrapped in pain. What we kill just grows back stronger. We belong to earth, and the blue still shines through the silence over scars we made. What you try to purge returns. What you feel